Is this a case of a submucous fibroid with a feeder vessel in inverted commas or an endometrial polyp? This was seen in a 35-year-old who presented with heavy menstrual bleeding. She's been a divorcee for the last 14 years. These are still images. You can see the endocervix and a mass within the endometrial cavity. Here you can see the endometrial lining. This is the color Doppler of the same case. Here you can see what looks like feeder vessel crossing into this lesion. But if you assess this image carefully, you realize that yes, this is the endocervix, this is the region of the internal os. But if you trace this up, see this is the end of the endometrium here. You can see the endometrial cavity here. Here you can see the feeder vessel going into this lesion. But since the endometrium ends here, this feeder vessel is therefore not crossing the endomyometrial junction. Now, this table is from my book, showing us the differences between endometrial polyp and submucous fibroids. And we shall see this in this video, although the gain here is actually high. The location: endometrial polyp is inside the endometrial cavity, while submucous fibroid arises from the myometrium. In terms of echogenicity, endometrial polyp is similar in echogenicity to the endometrium, so it's echogenic, while the echogenicity of fibroid is similar to the myometrium, which is hypoechogenic. Endometrial polyp will have a vascular pedicle that crosses the endomyometrial junction. Remember, the preceding slides did not show that vessel crossing the endomyometrial junction. So in submucous fibroid, there have been no vascular pedicle. In endometrial polyp, because it is inside the endometrium, so there will be no lifting of the endometrial lining, but there will be lifting of the endometrial lining. In submucous fibroids, there will be no shadowing in endometrial polyp, but there will be shadowing in submucous fibroid. So now let's look at this video and look at these differences between endometrial polyp and submucous fibroid and decide what this lesion is actually all about. This was a case of saline infusion sonography. So you can see the fluid, not an agitated saline, but you can see it's much air bubble. So you can see the fluid going into endometrial cavity, delineating the endometrial cavity. So you can see the endometrial cavity stopped here. You can see the other end here, and you can see this lesion bulging into the endometrial cavity. Now, location: endometrial polyp is inside the endometrial cavity, so this is not inside the endometrial cavity. It is arising from the myometrium. So look at this. This is the myometrium, and look at this lesion arising from the myometrium. Again, here look at the posterior myometrium. So it's arising from the myometrium. Secondly, what is the echogenicity of this lesion like? Is it similar to the myometrium or not? It is. Look at it. It's similar to the myometrium. Vascular pedicle, we've seen. This was where we saw the vascular pedicle here. So you can see that it is not crossing the endomyometrial junction, but it's from the myometrium. Lifting of endometrial lining. Here, there is lifting of endometrial lining. As you can see, this is the endometrium, this is the endometrial lining. So there is lifting of the endometrial lining. What of shadowing? Yes, you can see shadowing here. So you can see that all these features are features of submucous fibroid and not endometrial polyp. Now, this figure classification of myomas, where do this one fit in? 1. Submucous, less than 50% intramural. This submucous, less than 50% intramural. Submucous, less than 50% intramural. Of course, if you have facilities for 3D, you can see beautifully the outline of the lesion in relationship to the myometrium and in relationship to the endometrial cavity. Now, if you remember, the uterine artery gives branches called aqueous arteries. The aqueous arteries further gives branches called radial arteries. Then we have the basal and the spiral arteries. So now let's correlate this with this video of this patient. So here you can see this is the anterior myometrium, this is the posterior myometrium, cervical canal, this is the lesion within the endometrial cavity. So you can see this vessel here, and you can trace it backwards. So you realize that this is actually a branch. This is the aqueous arteries, and you can see the branching going in here. So this is not a feeder vessel, but a branch of the uterine artery supplying the submucous myoma. So look at it here. You can trace this here. You can see that. You can trace it backwards here up to the aqueous vessels, and from the aqueous vessel up to where the lesion is. So this should not be confused for a feeder vessel of a polyp, because it is not.